New economic data shows U.S. GDP rose 2.4% in the fourth quarter of last year. That is annualized. But there's uncertainty over the impact of the Trump administration's tariff strategy and what hit it will have on future growth. You're seeing the Dow next to me that was down this morning. It's up. It's relatively flat today. But let's chat with CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger, who joins me in Studio 55 in color, live in person. Help me understand this GDP data that I've just referenced. And what it tells us about the bigger picture as far as the economy.
It's old history. It's great.
Looking back.
Yeah, backward looking. We knew that consumers spent a lot of money in the fourth quarter. They spent even more money in the third quarter. Last year was a very good year of growth. This year already started a little bit lighter when it came to consumer spending. Some uncertainty that has continued. So the past report tells us nothing about the future. And in fact, what we do know is this first quarter, we're coming to the end of the first quarter. Yep. We'll get the official report on that at the end of April, the first report on that. We're probably growing at a pretty slow pace. There are some economists who think we're just flat, really no growth. Others who are looking at 1 or 2% annualized. What we do know, it is slower than it was in the previous 6 months.
So then when you introduce the term tariffs, I can't imagine that you're going to tell me that's going to lead to amazing economic growth. The president is saying that it protects U.S. manufacturers of automobiles and cars. But what does it really do to the outlook?
I think it's uncertain right now because we have tariffs that have been on again and off again, now on again.
Yeah.
And what we know about tariffs is that in the short term, prices can rise. Consumers are already anxious about that. We've talked about consumer confidence on this program. Consumer confidence is low, very low. And there's a real expectation that inflation or prices will re-accelerate. I think probably at the wrong time. You know, when you think about, the embers of inflation are smoldering, right? And anything that could reignite inflation freaks us out as human beings. And that's what we're talking about with tariffs. Over the longer term, depending on how long they stay in place, there could be a return to manufacturing. But I have to be clear, when you think about bringing a manufacturing facility online here in the U.S., we're not talking about weeks, we're talking about years. Yeah. And it takes a while to get that going. So I think the real fear among economists is that we have this crazy and rare combination of stagflation, stagnating economic growth, with rising prices or inflation. If that happens, not good for the economy, it puts the Fed in a very weird place.
You and I were speaking this morning on the CBS Morning News about Social Security. There are some people watching who rely on their Social Security checks to live every month. There's a new policy about overpayments being corrected. Help us understand what that means and what people should do if they're worried.
So the reality is that this impacts a very small percentage of Social Security recipients. Fewer than 1% of the 70 million people who receive Social Security payments get an overpayment for some reason. Could be the government's problem, could be your own problem about reporting, but that still amounts to 700,000 people. So in the past, when there was an overpayment, the government said, hey, Errol, we overpaid you. You owe us the money back. And if you didn't have the money on hand to repay it, they would take a portion of your Social Security check to cover that. 10% is what has been in place for the last couple of years. We'll take 10% of that check. Now, going forward, if there's an overpayment starting today, what's going to happen is the government says not 10%. It's going to be 100%. We're going to basically take your whole Social Security check every single month until that's paid off. If you can't afford it, you have to proactively go to the Social Security website, ssa.gov, and file a form that says, hey, I can't afford this. I rely on this, as you said, for my income. We do have some data on that. 40 to 50% of Social Security recipients rely on Social Security for the bulk of their expenses every month.
That's a huge portion. Hopefully those watching take your advice. Watch your pennies. Follow up and be proactive if this is happening to you. Jill, always great to chat with you.
Thank you so much.